sales champion coach and founder of Wise Sales Network. Today, I have Ina here with me. She's one of our recent college grads from Boston University. She's going to help me navigate through my Therapy Thursday. You guys all know that, well, you may not know, that I'm writing this new book, what the team is calling my memoir. And it's titled No Back Doors for Me. I'm wearing the t-shirt today. And it all stemmed from a story that my mom shared with me that when I was younger, before maybe I was born, she would go to this food restaurant in Galveston, Texas, where I grew up, and she would have to go to the back door to be served. And so one day she went, and I guess she thought maybe some things had changed so she can go to the front door. And they said, no, you go to the back door. And so as a young woman at that time and a young, mother, what have you, she made a decision that she would not do that anymore. And that story has always stuck with me in my life as I've navigated through life. And so this book, when I was thinking about the title for it and just the experiences that I want to share about my life and corporate America and dealing with isms throughout my journey, I decided to title it No Back Doors for Me because I truly believe that in that time, my mother made a decision as her firstborn child that she was not going to take me to any back doors. And so thank you for joining us today. I think we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. Ina, introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Joyce, for having me. As was said, my name is Ina Joseph. I am a recent graduate from Boston University. I guess it's not so recent anymore now that we're into the the new semester and approaching
right.
But I graduated from Boston University in May of 2020 with a double major in journalism and public relations, as well as a women and gender studies focus. And I am currently working in public relations as a public relations manager. I'm an editor for an upcoming lingerie brand, and I love to do advocacy, diversity, and inclusion work in my community.
Yeah. So you said women
and gender studies.
And gender studies. So why women and gender stories? Let's just kick it off there.
Yeah, sure. So what's funny is I never thought too much about women and gender studies in high school. I don't even think if I, thinking back in high school, it's not something that I even knew existed, or I wasn't thinking too critically about like feminism and feminist theory and all of that.
Right.
For a lot of high schoolers at the time. But I think I just fell into like a women's studies 101 course as an elective requirement for my major. And I just fell in love from that point on. I think it was my spring semester freshman year. Our professor was this amazing woman who I still have connections with today. She was really, really involved in the women's rights movement in Boston. And from that point on, I just became really passionate and dedicated about learning more about gender inequities and how that corresponds and intersects with the inequities I face as a Black person. Intersectional studies, I think, is something that is really integral to understanding the way the world works and the way you operate as a person and as how we operate as Black women in the world. So that's why women and gender studies.
Women and gender stories, kudos to you. And for even go, that just takes us right into our topic, right? Today's topic and what we're talking about is my HBCU experience, my college life. And so as you said, you didn't think about that when you were in high school and preparing for college and for your, career. But what college does, it just opens up so much thought for us. It challenges us for, in our core of who we are. So I attended college at Prairie View A&M University. It's a HBCU. I live here in Houston, Texas. I grew up in Galveston, Texas, about 40 miles south of Houston. Prairie View is about 40 miles north of Houston. And so, but being there on that campus, just challenged me. I heard you also say that some of those people are still in your life. And of course, you just graduated, right, in 2020. I'm not going to say when I graduated, it was a long time ago. But I still have my friends and my mentors and my sorority sisters in my life, on a weekly basis. And so, but college really, when I went into college like yourself, it was to study journalism. I wanted to be on TV, and I wanted to write. I was always a journalism student in high school, but when I got to college, I won't say but when when I got to college, I was introduced to so many other things around that communications and journalism realm. Like when you talk about public relations, I wasn't aware of public relations then, right? Sports marketing, event planning, all those things. I learned how to navigate all those things in college. I
Mhm.
didn't know that as I was a, graduating high school senior,
Right.
leaving, George Washington Ball. We call it Ball High School. Ball High School in Galveston, Texas, headed over to Purdue A&M University for my HBCU experience. So again, that's why I've seen a lot on LinkedIn lately, and I've commented on most of it about college. And they're saying, do you really need to go to college? And this and another. I think that if you don't go to college, I don't think you need to go if that's not your path, right? Everyone has our different path, our different journey. However, I see a tremendous value in education and college education, being away from home, right? So
Mhm.
you're in New Jersey now, you went to school in Boston.
Right.
And so you've gone from one, so you've lived in two key areas of the United States,
Mhm. Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and and you've experienced two different how were those experiences different? Being in Boston, being in Jersey.
Yeah, I think everything you just said like really aligns with my experience. Like you hit every nail on the head. Because for one, I had a very similar experience leaving high school and going to college. I had no idea what public relations was. I had never heard of it, and had it not been for my education at BU, I never would have fallen into public relations. I never would have fallen into women's studies, and ultimately, I never would have found the path of work in the career field that I do now, which entails storytelling and advocating on behalf
Mhm.
of, minority business owners, women of color with big dreams and big aspirations. Like that's at the heart of the work that I do. And I never would have even thought to fall into that field had it not been for my college education. And to your point about, or to your question about the differences between Jersey and where I am in New Jersey and Boston, I've had this exact conversation actually with peers of mine from high school who didn't go to college and who stayed home and either went on to do like a vocational educational program or just
Mhm.
working in family businesses. And I think there definitely is, at least where I'm from, because it's a pretty small, conservative, predominantly white town. And so that in itself creates a lot of interesting, like, identity, like, revelations for myself and things like
Yes.
that. So as for the college question, I've had the conversation where it's like there are people who I went to high school with and are doing really well for themselves without having
Yes.
gone to school. And kind of, I think, in some cases, look at me and say, like she didn't go, she went to college, but she's not all that. Or like she went to college, but she might not have a lot of the practical that I have, which I think to a certain extent is true. Like I know nothing about cars, and
But you
that is.
know what? I tell you, it comes full circle. So I'll
Mhm.
share with you my experience working with some people that went directly to entrepreneurship and never went to college or never
Right.
worked in corporate America. There's a
Mhm.
lot of things that foundational things that they're missing, and I
Mhm.
think the biggest one is just how to communicate with people,
Right.
all people.
Right.
As you're saying, your women's studies, your gender studies, how to, really conduct business on a, what we deem a professional level. And I don't even like the word professional for those. With common courtesy and some of the
Yeah.
core things that make sense when it comes to being mindful of other people and their thoughts and their feelings and, circle. And so I think that they maybe got out of their running, but I
Mhm.
think that there's going to be a time, and maybe not for everyone, if they don't take time to invest in themselves, attend conferences, attend meetings, talk to people like you, and maybe just do some personal development, there's a block. And I've experienced it with so many people that have not done that, right?
Right.
And I think if you even look at some of our, people that like Steve, who started Steve, if I know him on first name basis, that started Apple, he even said at a point in his career, when he was pushed out of Apple things, it was because if his, if he had to look at it, sometimes it's because of his attitude, his approach of how he explained his things to people. And so he became a powerhouse of understanding people and realizing that people was the core of his business and that people were going to build Apple. And that's why we have the Apple watches and Apple I this and I that now. But he didn't learn that early on because 'cause he kind of like left and said, "Oh, I don't need that." Right.
Right, right. Yeah, I would totally agree. I think the one difference, the one key difference between myself and even other peers that have gone on to different schools outside of the northern New Jersey area and peers of mine who stayed in this area is just an understanding and sense of empathy towards identities and lived experiences different from their own, because my town is pretty homogeneous in its demographics. It's, like I said, fairly white, fairly conservative. The people who have lived here have lived here their entire lives. And in their experience, in their immediate purview, there's really no reason to understand the lived experiences of marginalized people, or to understand the lived experiences of anyone who doesn't look like them, or who hasn't
Right.
had a similar lived experience to them. And had I stayed here, that may have been the case. Probably not, though, because I think I've always been kind of hungry and eager to like get out of my my small town and go like experience cities and things like that. But I think that something that's definitely missing in a lot of cases is like empathy and the desire to understand more than what seems immediately relevant to you.
Absolutely. And so it's sort of a self-fulfilling way to go about doing business if you really haven't taken the time to really understand others. So just really fast, for those of you just joined us, I am Joyce Johnson, and I'm here with Ina today, and we're talking about my HBCU experience at Purdue A&M University, and we're talking about the overall college experience, honestly. But this segment is called Therapy Thursday. As I began to write the book, now no back doors for me. I felt like I needed a little therapy. So we created this series to, just have some open and honest, vulnerable conversation about my life and also what other people are experiencing. So, I certainly appreciate you being on with me today. And, we talked about friendships, right? And that you gain in college. And I certainly, this morning I was texting with my college roommate, Paula, and we're still friends. And her daughter is my goddaughter. And I can remember us both being online pledging. I was on the Alpha Kappa Alpha line. She's on the Delta Sigma Theta line. And they knew that we were so tight and good friends. They would make us pass by each other and just say hi. And I tagged a couple of my sorority sisters that I pledged with on this, Sharita, Rada. I hate to start saying names on Miss B, but Sharita, Rada, Tari, Zelia. Love you guys. I love you. And we are still in each other's lives. Sonora, we're all just in each other's lives, right? And college, when I've learned so much from these people and these women because we all came from different places and spaces. We all had different journeys. We all had different majors. And but we open up so many. I like to believe that we open up doors for each other. Again, when I'm talking to my sorority sister Robin about her roles and what she does as a scientist and a PhD and things, I'm just kind of like, really? That just went over my head. But okay, I support you. I love you. But so were you able to form some of those bonds yourself while you were in college?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say, I mean, some people might disagree with me because obviously you go to college for the education and the degree and to get that paper at the end. But
Yeah.
first and foremost, I think my biggest takeaway from college was the relationships that I made. In fact, one of the work that I'm doing now, I mentioned earlier, I have two jobs. One of which is doing public relations and marketing management coordination for a lot of different, predominantly Black women-owned businesses through an agency you know well. And then the second job is editing and public relations managing for an upcoming intimate apparel brand. And both of these jobs, which I'm so blessed because they're my first jobs out of my college career and they check all of my boxes. I'm working with a really diverse group of women. I'm, you know, even though it's a virtual work environment, it's still a really inspiring and supportive work environment. And both of these jobs I found through relationships I made in school. The Intimate Apparel brand was founded by two young women who were a year ahead of me, and they were in Boston University School of Business. And now, similar to your experience with your friend who is getting their PhD in the sciences, I like marketing from the business end of things, like it's all over my head. But
Well,
that's
she did that right out of college too. She was,
yeah.
you know, she was in college. And we were like, you know, you know, when is Robin going to be out of college? Robin, if you're listening, I love you. I'm not, but yeah, she did that right out of college, and we're like, oh no, we're sick of school.
Yeah, yeah. And these two women saying they, you know, had the inspiration and the conception of this idea for an intimate apparel brand started when I was a freshman and they were sophomores, and I was just a little eager journalism student looking to write stories about fashion because my mom is in the fashion industry. I've always loved fashion. And I interviewed them when the business was just in its like initial stages. Like all they had to show for it was sketches and some communication they had done with manufacturers. And 4 years later, I graduate and they reach out to me saying, we're looking to launch in winter of 2020. Would you like to be the writer for our magazine? And would you like to help manage our
Wow.
So that relationship came full circle, even though we didn't have any classes together. We had very different disciplines and courses of study, but that was a relationship I'll cherish forever and has literally forged a path for me into the work I'm doing now. And same with my other job. So it's truly, and I mean, professional pursuits aside, like my closest friends to this day are people that I met in college. And even though we've only spent the last 4 years together, and regardless of whether or not we had classes together, maybe because we were resident assistants together or because we were on the dance team together, like those are relationships I think I'll have for the rest of my life. So relationships are definitely a big piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And and she knows it. My college friend Paula, I went to college with my cousin Renee, and I were the same age. I'm a month and a day older than she is. And so we, there's pictures of us growing up where we're dressed alike. We had to share our birthdays at certain points. If we wanted to have a big party, the party was like between both our birthdays. But she eventually left school. She was a nursing student, so she was always going to leave 2 years in anyway. Mm-hmm. And so it was just really a blessing that I bonded, with someone else. And then I had, then pledging, having my sorority sisters as well. So, tell me about what's one of your best experiences from college? What's one of your best learning experiences? You can tell me a learning experience. You can just tell me a fun experience from college. I'll let you choose.
Okay. I think I can kill both birds with one stone, I think.
Okay.
So like I said, I studied journalism, public relations, and women and gender studies. There were no really like artistic or creative pursuits in there whatsoever.
Yeah.
However, I did end up directing a competitive dance team. We were called Fusion. We're the Boston area is full of like really, really incredible, talented collegiate dance teams. And we hosted a dance competition called Elements, which was one of the biggest dance competitions in the East Coast. And so I was on that team all 4 years of college and was on the executive board for the team my last 2 years of college. And it's funny because as much as dance had nothing to do with what I was studying, I love dancing, but don't plan on pursuing it professionally. It was one of the richest and most educational experiences I've had outside of my classes, maybe even more so than some of my classes in college. Because to your point earlier about, falling into event planning in addition to the journalism major, that the same thing happened to me through my experience on the dance team. I learned how to, manage large events. I learned how to, handle internal conflict in an organization. I learned how to just communicate better with people coming from lots of different walks of life, lots of different priorities and mindsets. And ultimately, I made some of my best friends through that experience on the team. And it taught me.
That's the reason.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's the reason for the college experience. And people say, well, why do I need to go to college? You just told them the reason for the college experience.
Right.
In addition to adulting, I have an 18-year-old niece now, and she's in high school. I've been telling her for the last 2 years, you are focusing way too hard on high school. Get to college. I'm, I worked my way through college, and sometimes, one, two jobs, sometimes three, but I still, had a great time. But for her, I'm like, you're going to go to college, like my sister, who I'm 10 years older. You're going to go to college like on Shell. You're going to go to college. Everything's going to be paid for. You're going to get to travel and have fun with your friends, at your parents' expense while learning how to adult. I said, you're spending way too much time focusing on high school and college. On a more serious note, college sort of shelters us a little bit, I think, especially being at HBCU. I think that when I left Purview, I had been nurtured by the people that was there. So if I share one of my, learning experiences with you, and I guess it was a fun experience too. There was a conference of sort that I had to go to with the athletic department. I worked in sports information in college, and that's where I met my mentors, Barbie Jefferson, Deborah Thigpen, Mr. Brutus Jackson, who's now no longer with us. But they let me do anything I wanted to do. And some of the things I didn't even know I wanted to. But if there was something that needed to be done, they're like, Joyce, do this. And it wasn't, and I may not even know how to do those things, but I figured it out.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I figured it out. I executed on it. Everything from, helping to plan a track meet, helping to plan a football conference. I traveled with the football team. I typed play-by-play football team. I took the official book for basketball. Then after the games, I would type up an article and I would make sure it got to API and all of the media people. And, if they had to leave and go to meetings or entertain guests who was on campus, they knew that I was going to stay there. I was going to write those articles. I was going to send off those stats to where they needed to go and that they could depend on me to do it. And so one time we were at a conference in Houston at this hotel, and I don't know how I got lost from them because they obviously was entertaining and things like that. But I knew that I needed to close down our suite. I knew that there were things that needed to be executed on for the night. So I just took care of those things. And then when I couldn't find them to get back to campus or wherever we were going, I just went and got a hotel room there at that hotel.
Yeah.
Mr. Jackson, when he got the bill for that hotel room, he's like, "Oh, really? You got the suite?" I said, "That's all they had left." But he had always had suites, right? And so when they said that, they're like, "Well, we got the suite," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, I'll take the suite." I love the suite life till today. And so, but they left me there, and they knew that they could go on and conduct business because they knew that I would take care of it. And it just meant so much, after the fact. I didn't even think about it then. I probably didn't think about it 2 years later that they entrusted me with that. And sometimes they would leave campus and do things, and they're like, "Oh, Joyce is in charge," or, Joyce has it or whatever. And it just, it didn't mean as much then as it meant after the fact. But it was just such great times and great learning for me, and being able to see those people navigate and how they conduct business. I was on the phone just this week with one of the mentors that I had, Barbie Jefferson, on the phone with her just this week. And I was going through some things, that checking boxes about my team that I wanted to execute on. And she just started laughing in the midst of the call. She said, "Oh my gosh, you are so me."
Yeah.
I was like, so that was just a good experience for me. But as I said, I think sometimes being on that campus life and especially at HBCU, you get so much love, so many hugs, and so many opportunities that when you do leave it, you kind of leave and you're a little naive about what the world has for you. But I'm so grateful that you have found your way and that you found two great companies where you are celebrated. If I could say anything to our young, to that's to all of our women. If I can say anything to all of our women and our young African American women, or all of my nieces, and we all have that extended family and things where we're very multiracial, and my family, and so all of our young women, I just say that find a place where you celebrate it. Life's
Absolutely.
too short.
Absolutely.
Find a place where you celebrate it, and I'm so happy for you that you found that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I actually, because what I was thinking about too was as you were talking about your experience and you know, you've mentioned a few times, especially having gone to an HBCU, if that, in your experience, kind of helped you prioritize the kind of work that you wanted to find and the work that you wanted to do. Because I know for me, you know, going to college somewhere that was infinitely more diverse, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say Boston University is the most racially diverse school in America, because it's not. Infinitely more diverse than where I'm from. And that made me realize, you know, workplace diversity and inclusion was going to be a priority for me. So I wonder if that was the case for you, having gone to an HBCU, like how that environment kind of helped you find the career path you wanted to pursue and like your workplace priorities.
I think certainly in the workplace priorities, that I've always been a mentor. I've always had a mentor, but I've always mentored others. And I think it taught me and instilled in me no one left behind, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
like the no back doors for me. No
Yeah,
one
no,
left
exactly.
behind, and that we network, and we help each other where we can. And I'm always willing to take time to talk to another woman. I've one thing I've done during COVID is opened up my calendar, and so I've had these 30-minute chats with women that I maybe met through other networks or what have you while I'm on other calls, and they share that we talk about ourselves, and they say, well, can I get on your calendar? I've opened that up so that I can spend, yesterday I had one and she said, what do I owe you for this? I said, you don't owe me anything.
Mm-hmm.
Answer your phone, because I may connect you with someone in the future that's going to need your help.
Right, right.
Right. And so I think it gave me that sense of responsibility
Mm-hmm.
that we are, that we need to help each other,
Mm-hmm.
and that we're going to hug you and we're going to love you. And then when we release you to the world, it's going to be a little different,
Yeah.
but to whom much is given, much is expected.
I love that. Yeah, that is so true. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's, I think that's what I take from my HBCU experience, and that we are all in it together, and that we can all succeed, and we help one another, and we push one another. And, and it was a good time a good time in my life.
Mm, I love that. I really do love that. I think something that was kind of like a source of, I don't want to say internal conflict per se, but I definitely did when looking at my colleges, like my options back when I was a senior in high school. And mind you, I was like, so I think a lot of high school seniors feel this way, but I was so, so worried about not getting accepted anywhere, that like irrational fear that I wasn't going to end up in college. So I must have applied to over like somewhere between like 18 and 22 different schools. Like it was
Right.
crazy. And HBCUs were in that list, but it was always that, you know, I was wondering, because that was so starkly different from the environment that I had grown up in. So ultimately I chose, I chose Boston University, which isn't an HBCU, but carries the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and the work that he did and the rich
Yeah.
civil history of the city. I thoroughly enjoyed. So, but in that way, I can completely like resonate with what you're saying, like being able to find the community that you feel will support you and identifying that when you're in school, so that once you go off to the real world, which to your point, which is absolutely right, isn't always as embracing and isn't always as inclusive,
Right.
still
And
being
then,
able to figure out those spaces for yourself.
yeah. And then Purview is what they call a college town.
Mm-hmm,
Right.
mm-hmm.
So the university, everything's centered around the university. It's a huge college town, and you're not driving. Like some people that go to school in the inner city, they're driving to the clubs and they're doing this and that. Everything that happened really happened there on campus, in that, in that circle, in that environment. So that was another great thing that was about Purview that I love still to this day. If any of you out there, thank you for tuning in to Thursday Third, but we're going to wrap it up here in a minute. But if you're driving down 290 past Houston and you're going out west and you see that sign that says Purview A&M University, take that exit, go to the right, make a right at the light, and go onto our beautiful campus. It's amazing. Enroll your kids. This is my commercial for PV, but no. So, but love the campus. We're missing homecoming this year. We are a huge homecoming family. But yeah, I definitely think that I left an environment as well
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't as diverse.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, And I guess it was a part of the greater plan. I end up at Purview, and I think I got what I needed to build the strength that I needed to go out and endure my professional life.
Right. Absolutely. And that, I think that means you did the college experience right, right? That means you got out of it what you needed to get out of it.
I got out of what I needed to get out of it, and I'm grateful to all the people that entered my life during that time. And I know I called some names. I know someone's going to say I didn't say their name or what have you. I apologize. Forgive me. That's what happens when you say names. I apologize. I apologize. Please forgive me. But thank you, everyone who had a part in my HBCU experience. I truly appreciate it. We need to wrap up, but any parting words?
Oh, any parting words? I guess if there are any like young people or current college students watching, or maybe if this gets shared with, family members and young high school graduates who are, thinking about what their future entails, to kind of uh, reemphasize what Joyce said earlier, college may not be for everybody. And I can see how, especially in these times, trying to navigate virtual or hybrid learning and everything with COVID, it can feel a little daunting
Yeah.
pursuing collegiate education right now. But it is so worth it. I think it's, if you have the means, if you have the ability, and if you feel that this path may be right for you, just go for it, because there's so much more that comes out of it than just the degree. If anything, the degree is like a mere sliver of all of that the college experience has to offer and all the ways it develops you as a person. So
Oh, very well said. And yeah, and I had in my mind too, people talk about, oh, we're student loans. You know what? You have to invest in yourself. You
absolutely.
have to invest in yourself, and you look at yourself as a business. So as I'm talking to the young people, I'm going to use this Jay-Z. You are a business man or woman, right? And so you have, just like you would invest in a business, you have to invest in yourself. So don't get fogged down with, oh my gosh, I'm going to have student loans. You are investing in yourself, and the investment in yourself to go to college and to learn the things that Ina and I have and experiences that we've had is well worth it. Write the
Absolutely.
check. It is well worth it. It is well worth it. So, we're going to wrap up this has been Therapy Thursday. I am Joyce Johnson, author, speaker, sales champion, coach, and founder of Y Sales Network. I want you to go over, you can pre-order my book, No Back Doors for Me. It's on the I Am Joyce Johnson page. We need to put a link from Y Sales Network to the I Am Joyce Johnson's page. And I've got to remember that. I'm going to write that down after we hang up. But we do have it for pre-purchase. You can get the package where you have the book and you have the t-shirt and you get a journal. So it's iamjoycejohnson.com, www.iamjoycejohnson.com. The new book, my 7th book since 2017, is my 7th book. I'm super excited. The pre-launch date is January the 15th, which is significant dates for me. It's Dr. Martin Luther King's actual birthday, as you mentioned about him earlier. It's the Founders Day of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, my sorority affiliation. And actually, my friend Bridget's birthday too. I always tell her, Bridget, I can never forget your birthday because it's that day, and so I never forget Bridget's birthday. And but No Back Doors for me has been a spiritual enlightening, personal enlightening. It's put me in a very vulnerable, light space writing this book. I've enjoyed the journey. Thank you guys for taking on this journey with me. Again, go over to iamjoycejohnson.com, pre-order the book, and join us every Thursday at noon here on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and eventually we're going to get to Instagram too. It is a user issue, and the user is me, but we're working on it. But at any rate, make it a great day. Thank you, Anya.
Thank you so much, Joyce. Have a good one.